Yeah, I'm sorry about that. I thank Dr. Roper, who prefers to be called Jocelyn. We thank Dr. Roper. I call her Dr. Roper anyway, because I'm working on my dissertation, and y'all best believe when I'm finished in May, y'all gonna say doctor. That's what I want y'all to practice. I want y'all to practice. And Arlene is looking at me like, yeah, well, let's finish first, and then maybe. You've only been working on this for 30 years.
I'm wondering if Dr. Roper finished everything she wanted to say. Did you?
Yeah,
Did you?
yeah, we're good.
Unless you want to talk, maybe talk about what happens if it goes through the district superintendent.
Well, just the kind of support we get. You know, there's a lot of things that have come from the district and the conference in the preparation for this policy, so that if there's an allegation against anyone, how do they support that? And if you had any news on it.
The only thing I want to make sure that we do about that, Deb, as I kind of step back and introduce it, is to let the people at Ebenezer know who, as we're growing, not just as an individual congregation and in an individual space, John Mckinley in his vision to work with and work alongside resettled persons really has an opportunity to do something that's landmark in terms of how we not just experience persons from other countries, but also facilitate the wholeness that people can actually be considered human. And so in saying that, it's always very important for the persons that are in his organization and his business to understand the Methodist Church contextually. So what's very important for you all to kind of think about and understand is that the United Methodist Church is a global phenomenon that happens to be constructed and organized in a series of churches that have common felt beliefs all over the world, to the extent that 10% of all of the United Methodist churches are in the Congo. And you know, we go to the Congo. I go there every year to do work in the Congo. And yet there was something that took place over the last 2.5 years relative to a difference of opinion on human sexuality that has led to a disaffiliation of more than half of the churches worldwide. And so this, what we are now, John, is in a place called the West Ohio Conference. And the West Ohio Conference, which used to have 1,100 churches, now has just under 700 churches, which is paramount to how we think about the allocation of funds, looking for pastors, and it feels like a lot of people are scrambling. But why I'm so excited about the work that we're doing here is that you can help people support and introduce them to a whole new pathways of particular persons that we've never dreamed about ministering to. So when Jocelyn talks about the allegations and the things that come from that nature relative to safe sanctuary, building concerns, it feels very local, but it has ripples that really span across the whole world. So I want you and some of your employees and some of the employees who become family members to understand that what we're kind of holding in tension is an opportunity to share ministry with the entire world. And I always want to kind of go through that spiel, because once you know that you're a part of something larger than yourself, it kind of takes us back to what we embodied at the very beginning when we were meditating about creating not just a safe place for each other, but also a safe place in the world. All right? I like to hear my own self talk sometimes, Jocelyn. Here you go.
Earlier, we talked a little bit about how people that are coming into the church have to use our safe sanctuary policy if theirs is not at a minimum level to what we have. Now, what we've done, the West Ohio Conference provides a good template for us to use for safe sanctuaries, and then we sit, and Deb and I sat, went through those, went through everything so that it was relevant to what we do here in Dayton. So that's how we got to where we are, but they help us provide a template for all of that. Now let me just talk a little bit about a complaint if it happened. Should a child or an adult be injured while here or should they be molested? I hate to use that word, but let's just make it what it is. If
Injury of the heart.
Yes, injury of the heart, but if there's a molestation, anything like that, it has to be reported to the pastor. The pastor then calls the district superintendent, and they determine whether it is something that needs to go further than the local church. But it's in consultation with the district superintendent that the pastor decides whether it's going to be escalated or, let me say it this way. If there's an incident that involves the police, where there's abuse of some kind, then that has to be reported. It's going to the police, it's going to the pastor, and the pastor is going to take it to the district superintendent. District superintendent and pastor will have a discussion about it. The problem with things that go to the police is they're often public records, and so there are people standing around, hovering around. I was in an accident 2 weeks ago, and in my mailbox that was on a Tuesday, and by Friday I had 14 things from lawyers asking me, did I want to sue somebody? So if that's the case, and there's an abuse reported, and particularly if a church is involved, news eats it up. So the superintendent then talks to the bishop. The bishop and the superintendent pastor make a decision about how to handle that particular case. The other person that is brought in is the person over the communications, because what they want to do is control any communication that goes out from the church, and usually there is none. The pastor is advised that he or she should not say anything, not to the newspaper, not to anybody. And if there is any communication sent out about it, it comes out from the West Ohio Conference, not from the church. So there is a chain by which we operate, and that it would include you, because you're in the building. So if something happens and Ebenezer has an incident, then you would tell Pastor Peter, and then we would work through the channels to understand how to handle that best. And that way, there's not more than one story floating out there. There's not people that the news media can hound and say, well, I'm going to camp out on your porch until you come out here and say, and it happens. I mean, anytime something bad happens, people want to know. Whether they need to know or not, they want to know. And so it is not to shut down communication, but to make sure that the communication is accurate and it's coming from one source. Nobody else gets to comment on this.
And the only time that would be disrupted would be if the accusation is toward that senior pastor.
Right, yes.
Then you would go directly to
Then you would contact another staff person, if Debbie or I were here, and then you would say, we need to have a conversation. The senior pastor has done something to abridge our rights and our privacy and who we are, and we need to have a conversation about that. Same with Mr. Mckinley. If someone comes to you with an accusation about him, you need to report it to Pastor Peter, and then he will work with Mr. Mckinley and the district superintendent, if necessary, to resolve the issue. Everybody clear? Okay. All right.
I do need a little what, do you have an extra paper? I left mine upstairs. No, the agenda, because I don't even know which bullet point I'm talking about next. Thank you. Briefly. Okay, fun. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Do you want to join me? This does have both of us involved. Or I'll wait. I'll wait until... Oh, gosh. So, hi, my name is Ashton Dupler. I do work for every entity involved here today except for Ebenezer. Yet, I'm sure that, maybe I'm just kidding. No, but I'm an associate pastor here with the McKinley United Methodist Church, also at St. Paul United Methodist Church, as well as the Dayton Equity Center. And so I wanted to review today just some general building concerns. And I have with me today our intrepid and wonderful HR manager, Andrell Jones, who has gotten us together in more ways than one. Wonderful. Our incredible, intrepid, beautiful Andrell Jones. Is that enough? Oh, yeah. No, give her a round of applause. Give her a round of applause. Y'all didn't clap for me, but that's okay. I won't remember that. We wanted to talk a little bit about what does it mean, and you heard in the discussions we've had this morning, how much the space, the actual physical space, matters in these conversations. It does change things if there's a window on the door or not. Does change things if you can have multiple exits or not. And so we want to make sure that when we talk about safety and safe sanctuaries, we're also mindful of how to create the actual space where those ministries or those things happen. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about what we have as MOUs. And so MOUs are memorandums of understanding. We are initiating one starting today, and we will get that to you, Mr. Mckinley, with Ebenezer Healthcare Access. We have one with the Dayton Equity Center, and we have one with Girls Emerging to Maturity. Anyone who uses our space on a multiple series of dates that's beyond kind of a contractual basis where we're actually sharing space and a culture of hospitality that we'll talk about in a minute, we need to define what that looks like. Because y'all know, how many of y'all have had a roommate before? Or a sibling? And that's folks that you like. Sometimes we're trying to just get our work, well, okay, maybe not for you. Okay, Reverend Deb has one roommate that she did not like. No. Oh my goodness, it's hard enough to share your living space with someone, let alone your workspace. And here, these 10,000 square feet that we operate in, we get the max out of that at this point. We really maximize that. And that means that safety concerns, as we use the building more, just become more and more pertinent. And so defining and discerning how we work together, how we share space, is done in that memorandum of understanding. I will make sure that after today, you'll get a copy of that so that if you're in your own space or you're developing your own partnerships, it doesn't have to be building related, but memorandums of understanding are ways in which we just have a shared understanding of what's our relationship to each other. What are our deliverables? What do we do for each other? How do we make sure that when we're talking together and working together, we don't step on each other's toes and we actually get to work and actually get to help people and don't let things, for instance, like parking spots, and you're sitting in a church pew. Anybody ever been to church and you're sitting in someone's seat before? Yeah. And they're only there once a week. Imagine if, some of us are here 5 and 6 days out of the week. And so it's easy to kind of feel like, oh my gosh, we're on top of each other. And Andre's like, leave me alone. Give me some space. So we want to talk about that and set up ways in which we can say, hey, I have an issue, I have a problem. And we'll talk about some things that you all have brought up to us recently, where you've been like, hey, can we use this? Can we do this? How do we relate to each other in this building so we can stay safe and make sure that our clients, our customers, our church members, all those folks that we see here and visit with us are safe and protected. So that's how we use that. We use that. What do you mean? What? Well, yes. I mean, it is. I'm sorry. No, this is clearly about more than just the 10,000 square foot here. It's also about the 10,000 square foot on 4th and Huffman. It applies everywhere. And so we want to make sure that as we kind of develop partnerships and work with other people and bring new entities into this building, that we do that in a safe way. We've talked a little bit about room reservations. One of the ways in which we increase partnerships is we bring people like Girls Emerging to Maturity or like Ebenezer Healthcare Access 5 years ago into this space by saying, hey, we have a space, we have a room. St. Paul does this on a number of different levels already. We do this as well here at McKinley, is say, how can we then invite the Dayton Equity Center to take primary responsibility of this space for a designated time to serve folks. But some of us might have an event we want to do at the church. We might have events that we want to utilize. I know y'all have done baby showers before, weddings, funerals. There are all kinds of special events that don't require an MOU. And so how do we make sure we're safe and keep that kind of contractual informational data secure? We have, and I'll send this out in a follow-up email, a link where you can reserve a room here at McKinley and do that so that at least 2 to 3 weeks in advance, preferably, of course, there are incidents where you want to host a funeral here or for your loved one or something that comes up immediately. There's obviously going to be room or exception, but at least 2 weeks prior to the event, you can go on that link and say, I would like this room reserved at this time for this purpose. I need audio-video assistance because we don't just allow anyone to use this. I'm sorry. That's $10,000 and a giant headache for me every single Sunday. So we want to make sure that when you do come into the building, you have access to whatever you need. So if you're working with a partner of yours or a client, Ebenezer hosted a great event this past summer where there were all kinds of different vendors and wonderful opportunities for the community. But we need to plan and prepare for those things so that we make sure that if kids are going to be in the building, vulnerable adults are going to be in the building, we have proper people at the exits and entrances. We can make sure that security is involved. And I love the fact, I don't know if Miss Arlene, if you said it earlier today, talking about we need to include in that questionnaire a form that asks about how many kids do you anticipate? How many adults? What's the capacity, not just the capacity of the room, but what kind of folks are we going to be serving and working with and celebrating with on that day? So you'll be able to use that link so that if you personally, or if you, as a part of your organization at St. Paul or Ebenezer, at McKinley or at Dayton Equity, want to use some of our collective space here, we can make sure that NA isn't coming in the same time you're thinking of hosting your birthday party, because it'll look different, okay? They want to talk about some different stuff than just your birthday, okay? So make sure that you check out that email that I'll send out so that we can work together really well together. That copy of that document gets sent to you, gets sent to the pastoral staff, gets sent to Raymond Hummons, who is chief of staff, and it also gets sent to Miss Arlene, who's in the secretary's office, so that we can put that on our church calendar. So that Deb doesn't think, oh, I can go record a video in the sanctuary. No, it's being used for Rachel's blah, 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 blah. I'll let you fill in the blank later and tell them about that. Anyway, we want to make sure that we can have a system where we can agree about and plan for events that might change how people interact so that they're safe. And there might be instances where we say, oh, okay, if you want to host people in this space, we need to make sure that someone from security is there. We need to make sure someone from our team is there. We need to make sure someone who speaks that language of the folks who maybe speak Spanish naturally. We want to make sure someone's there that can actually speak their language. Those are the things that we want to think about ahead of time. So we're putting in place a form that has, up to this point, have been a paper form that, I know Mr. McCoonsy's filled out before, I've filled out before for Dayton Equity events. We want to make sure that now is accessible online and it gets to everybody at once. So that then we can come together, make a decision at staff meeting, and move forward. So those are the two things that I wanted to talk about. Safety exits. I feel like that. No. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, my turn. I don't have the energy that he has, but I know you've noticed. That we've got these little signs up at the exits. The importance of these is for you to notice where you are and where the nearest exit is for you in case we have an emergency, a fire, or something like that. We want to make sure you're safe. And one other thing that I hope that you got when you came in was how to respond to an active shooter. It not only tells you to run, hide, and fight, but also it tells you what to do when the police arrive, and then how to recognize somebody who's almost going crazy. You know, so you should look at this, just take a few minutes and read it. Great. Yeah. Okay. You need one? I'll get you one. Okay. And the other thing I wanted to talk with you about is parking. Now, I'm not the parking police. However, just as a reminder, you know we have people visiting, we have plenty of clients coming in, and we want them to feel welcome. Well, we have a visitor's parking lot that has visitor on it, and we have handicap parking spaces. The first 4 are visitor, and then there's, I think, 8 for handicap. When we have someone coming in that's visiting, and they may be handicapped, and they can't get into the handicap parking space, how does that make us look? So unless you have a parking placard, we would appreciate you not parking in the handicap or the visitor parking space. But again, we're not going to arrest you or anything. It's just a reminder. Just keep it in mind. And I think that's it. We did good.
Andrell won't. I will. Big Sandy will be coming up. The Sandy's Towing will be coming up to pull your car away. You'll never see it again. I'll pawn it off and buy myself. And we want to create a culture of hospitality for our clients and visitors. Everybody has been to a church, a place before where it's been less than unique and nice. And no one wants to walk from Kingdom Come their first time they come in here. It's crazy enough trying to get into a new space that you've never been before. So we want to create that culture of hospitality. And so if there are instances where you need access to the building, you need a key made, you need to open up a door, we want to ask you that we also maintain a culture of safety. So these doors should be locked and closed at all times unless you're physically present to make sure something's being loaded or unloaded or brought in or brought out, because we do have a lot of folks who we want to make sure that we're creating a culture of safety where people know once I enter this building, someone's watching over me and the space involved. That's for all of our clients. So safety and hospitality are utmost. Go ahead.
When you exit, if you're the last person exiting the building, please turn off the lights. Everybody's doing a wonderful job of setting the alarm, all that, but the lights are left on. We just need one light on, and that's the one by the exit door, but all of the others in the hallway need to be turned off. So we'd appreciate that.
Great. Any questions about that topic of MOUs, building usage, different shared space, and creating a culture of hospitality, both inside these walls and in the parking lot? Comments, concerns? Mr. Mckinley. This is a great question, and I think it's something we've discussed, because we want to make sure that everyone knows, hey, you can, if you work here, you don't have to eat lunch in the computer lab or at your desk. We prefer not. We want to invite you to the fellowship hall. And so that's something that's consistent with what we do. Please let someone know that you're down there in case of a fire or emergency, so that we can remember to come let you know about that fire or emergency. However, please use the fellowship hall. There are microwaves down there. There is a section of the fridge. You see there's one that says food bank only. The other side of the fridge, if you would like to keep your lunch there, we do clean that out regularly and periodically. But we want to make sure that there's space for you. So that fellowship hall, if it's not being used, and usually if we have an event, there's always lunch. We do like to eat. So if there's a power program going on, or if there's a workforce development, or an event like on Wednesdays where we have our feeding ministry, we want you to join us for lunch anyway. So that's the space in place. The cafeteria can be complicated because of the offices that are around there, and because we don't have a lot of meeting space. And we want to make sure that that's open and available for things like Deb's class that she hosts on Tuesdays, and the church's ministries throughout the week. So the cafe. I'm sorry, what did I say? Oh, you're right. Sorry. So yeah, the Holy Grounds Cafe, which is right on this floor. If you would just please reserve that for those things. You're welcome to come in and get water, what have you. It's not like it's off limits. But if you're eating your lunch, the fellowship hall is welcome and open to everybody. So does that answer your question? And did I? Great. This is your time to punk me out and ask the question. Yes, Pastor Festus.
You have parking for visitors,
Yes.
and then you have, our visitors sometimes they can come and occupy the whole place. So could you probably put some visitors probably on the church or something like that?
Ah.
We can for people. You know what? When it's like this, it means really church has some visitors as well. Don't come and you feel like coming from either
Yeah.
somewhere and they come.
No, I think it's a great.
That would help because I know that we have visitors who may need that much.
Well, if you are here on Sunday, we hope that you would not park in the visitor section. But I think that those and I might have some opposition here. I don't think so, though. Visitor parking is for any visitor at all. So if they're a client of Ebenezer's, or if they're coming for a power program, or if they're here because they're here to see Rachel, or if they're a visitor at all, we want to just leave those spaces open for folks who don't work here or come here regularly. So if you come here every day, you're sorry, you're no longer a visitor, you're family. Tragic. And so we want to make sure that those spaces are open for folks who are new. And so if your clients or our clients or anybody's clients, Dayton Equity Center, whoever is here, those spaces should be open to new folks. And you don't have to, we're not going to police that. We're just asking that we, as this building's general, employees and people who want to create a culture of hospitality, we want those spaces to be open for people who are here for the first time or the fifth time, or here because they're here to access services, whether they be spiritual, social, personal, what have you. So that's a great question, but I would not worry about putting church on there. It's for everybody. Great question. John. Absolutely. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I think that technologically, I don't know all of the details about faxing. However, I do know that you do need a phone line, and you're welcome to come test that anytime you want, and I think we've talked about that. So please, you're welcome to test that, and once that works, we can run a line out of that room. Great. There's a new buzzer installed upstairs in Ebenezer's room, if you have not known about that, and you do work in this building, which is allowing folks to invite people in, and we do have access on the camera system for folks to be able to see that on a CCTV so you can see who you're letting in. So thank you for participating in that and supporting that. We really appreciate that. Just making sure everybody's safe. All right. Yes. The safety policies and the conversations we're having are comprehensive in the sense that, obviously there's no buzzer upstairs at St. Paul that we're talking about. However, when we're talking about a culture of, right. Well, I'll introduce you to Denver. So we just want to make sure that there's a culture of hospitality and safety in every single place that we occupy. So it's comprehensive. Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people want to give away stuff to give to those refugees and immigrants, but the storage is a huge
Mm-hmm.
Issue. So maybe in the future, when we will be operating the MOU, you can also think about the storage.
Absolutely. I think that's definitely a great idea that we could talk about at a later date. Because I think that what we're talking about here is just how we work together, and we'll use that MOU to have that conversation where we say, hey, what's available and what's not? Because I know that you all really do provide quite a lot to the community, and we want to help however we can ensure that that's accessible. So we'll have that conversation at a later date. It's a great idea. Okay. Thank you so much for your attention. If you have questions, that follow-up email will come out with that link to reserving a room, and that applies to all of our organizations here as well as across the street at St. Paul.
Yeah, I think at some point what we want to consider is to have this space here where we meet quarterly and have conversations.
I'm sorry.
I think that we want to have a quarterly conversation. I think the next time we meet, let's be sure we can meet. We can talk with Joanne and the people of St. Paul to make sure that we can meet there and to have a conversation where people can see the building and take things into consideration. I also think that, John, what you can do is when this is over, let's have, we talked about this before, but once a month, yourself and perhaps someone else for your team can meet with Andrel and Jocelyn on a monthly basis just to talk about the MOU so we can stay in constant communication so things don't seem so far stretched out since we last communicated. Jocelyn doesn't know it yet, but because she's retired, she's going to be the chairman of the trustee board at McKinley United Methodist Church. Look at that. Let's just clap in advance. Hallelujah. I know it's not Sunday, but hallelujah. 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 You didn't see that? Do you see what that just happened? I almost need the organist to come in or something like that. And so it'd be good for you to talk with the chairman of our trustee board on a regular basis so there's an ongoing conversation about memorandums of understanding. You guys can kind of have that worked out. Because what we want to do is get into the habit of building this culture. And I think what we mean by this culture is, if you heard Ashton, he was saying culture of hospitality, culture of respect. The reason we started with the embodied meditation at the beginning is because we want to develop habits of the heart. I know every time I talk it seems like a sermon, but the sermons have to be aligned with what we're doing organizationally and then pushed out to what we do as an institution. So these things start with the heart, and if you're used to practicing things with your heart, they become a habit of your organization. If they become a habit of your organization, you can do that, right? That's not me, that's Voltaire. So we want to make sure in doing these habits of the heart that we can create that space. And because you got the chairman of the trustee board in 2024 right in front of you, you should take advantage of that. Huh? We are coming to like the last 13 or 14 minutes of our time together. If you look at Roman numeral number 4, we're talking about the creating of the community. We pick on Jocelyn and we're asking her I just want you to think about, again, what we talked about. This is a local church. I want everybody to understand. You're in a local church. This church is a part of a district. This district now has still more than 100 churches within the greater, well, actually has more now because we're associated with the people in Dayton. So we have more than 150 churches that have the United Methodist insignia outside of it, literally from the outside of Springfield all the way south, almost to Kentucky, all the Methodist churches that are there. So why I want you to be here, John, and with your team that's become your family is obviously there's opportunities, but there's a way that we go about implementing these kinds of aspirations in a larger context. And so this church represents more than 100 churches between here and Kentucky, and then there's the conference. In the conference, these are some of what are the things, the complaints come to bear. So if there's something that happens with one of your clients, and it reaches the level where it comes outside of your office, and it comes to us, as a result, because I've signed off on a whole bunch of things around here as the kind of the liable party, have to then run it up the flagpole, and then it becomes a larger issue rather quickly. Does that make sense to everybody? I don't. We are not a non-denominational church. We're not a Baptist church. We have an Episcopal form of governance. So that means we are, responsible to a larger party. We're just not a church that operates on its own. And so in doing that, that's why I think it's an opportunity to do so many things. The other thing that we talked about relative to human sexuality, when more than half of that congregation, those churches, quote unquote, were disaffiliated, Joanne knows this too, that was like $10 million that walked out the door of the church over the next 18 months. It's a lot of money. I'm sorry, I'm stopping because someone's coming to the door as we're talking about safe sanctuary. That door's not open, sir. It's locked. You can't get in that door. Charles, go see who that is. But I just think it's a wonderful example of what we're talking about, right? Relative to the active shooter, I want to say this. I know you mentioned this a little bit, but I just want to say that too. I have had some threatening, particularly it started in 2020. You remember this, Ms. Ubayake, when we were talking about it before. I had some very interesting mail that came with my name on it, with targets of my face and all that kind of stuff. I got a lot of hate mail during that time. I got some of that again last year. So not just for my safety, but on Sunday we actually have a paid person that walks through the building throughout the Sunday service. And we always have 2 people here that have registered firearms. I don't, just to it makes me nervous too, but I don't want to because of my presence, put people in jeopardy. So we have that. People don't know who they are, but they're here so the people in the church can feel safe, right? Deb's getting her license renewed as well, so Deb can sit out there as well. Annie Oakley, Reverend Debbie Annie Oakley. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there because it's a pretty crazy environment, and people are people. Here's the last thing, and I'll leave you with this before we answer any questions. McKinley is 143 years old. Before we leave, I'm going to can you guys just turn back right here? Miss Cynthia, tell us a little bit about the usage of this building since you were inside. Is it a little different? So Miss Cynthia's been here her entire life. She didn't know I was going to ask her to say anything. But when you think about the way this building is being used from the way it is now to when you were a little child, can you tell us the difference?
When I first got here, this part of the building was not here
Right.
yet. It was a smaller building.
So what she's saying is in the beginning,
It
I'm
was,
sorry,
this
it was just
here.
this sanctuary.
Just this thing.
So it was just this sanctuary. That was the pastor's office, and that was just another room. So it was just this building here. I just want to explain. Keep going, Mama.
And it was really full back then. When I was a little girl, the kids sat upstairs in that balcony. There were seats and stuff.
Joanne is having flashbacks to her at St. Paul. Absolutely.
The balcony would be full, but I always remembered we were always eating. There was always something at church, and, it wasn't brought in. The ladies cooked and brought the food in, and you got that good home style cooking and stuff like that, but we still like to eat, as you can tell.
Absolutely.
But
Did you ever think the building would be used the way it's being used now?
no, but I think it's a wonderful usage of the building. I remember voting for Ebenezer
Right.
to
Absolutely.
come in. I remember that meeting and meeting people
Right.
for the first time.
Absolutely.
So it's been at times it's been challenging when we weren't sure whether we were going to be here,
Right.
But I like where we have gotten to, multi-uses of the church. That helps us to, and we learn more about people, you know.
Absolutely.
And it's always good to know about people, you know.
No. I think it's important for people to get just a kind of narrative approach about who we are and what we're attempting to do. This is not something that Peter Matthews came with a cookie cutter plan to kind of invest into. I say this all the time, and I'm wrapping up. Here is the thing. If you went to Walmart tomorrow and you got to Walmart and you were outside the door and it said closed, open on Sundays from 11 to 1, you would be like, that is the biggest waste of a Walmart ever, right? Wouldn't you think that would be silly? Like, Walmart is this huge building and it's only open on Sundays 11 to 1. That's how many people experience their church, right? You got all this space, all these possibilities, and it's only open from Sunday 11 to 1. And so kind of as I close, one of the things that we come about full circle, we take this embodied space of a sanctuary, which is the temple of our heart, and how do we live into that? So we do that. Church on Sundays, there's 6 different types of Bible studies and things that you can get involved in. But because we live in an impoverished area, we had to create an entirely separate business, part and parcel with grants that we received, called the Dayton Equity Center. The Dayton Equity Center does an after-school program. We recently received a $1 million 21st century school grant that comes with the federal government, of which Rachel is our grant administrator for that project. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you, Rachel. We have a workforce development program in the last 2 years that's given more than 200 people jobs. Those jobs now, we're not only celebrating in the New York Times, but also with Procter & Gamble. That was their initiative for 2022. It's become so successful that it's now a cybersecurity program, and we thank Ashton for running that. Let's give Ashton a round of applause. We also knew that we were interested in new people, not just transferred church people, but we work with new people. So the work that John Mckinley has done over the last 3 years, which now is not just the largest social service organization, but I have argued in different spaces that the work that you all do at Ebenezer, it's the largest African-owned business in Montgomery County. So you all should celebrate you all for the work that you do with more than 1,000 people a month in that space. So having done all this, and then we are always open from August to November to participate in the electoral process with the Ohio Unity Coalition, and we help register people to vote in that space. This building gets packed. And so we're excited because starting in January of 2024, Ashton has recently received a promotion. He's going to be our VP of Development, and some of the work that's been done here, he's going to take Miss Joanne by the hand, and he's going to see how we can begin to think about standing on the shoulders of the amazing work that's already being done at St. Paul with food and the way they assist, particularly the Hispanic American and Latinx population, to do some very, 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 very exciting things. And so what does that mean? That means that all of these buildings start with us, the patterns of the heart. And if, as you take the care of your heart seriously, you will hold a reflected lens and a mirror and see how seriously that you have to take other people as well. Because all it takes, I'm telling y'all, one kid with one cell phone posted on social media, and this whole thing could go up in flames. And so, gosh, is it time again? We just had an in-service. Oh my gosh, Peter's going to hold us hostage again. We just did that. Why do we have to do? Because of the heartbeats that we take care of, starting with ours. It's important that we remind ourselves of that we're in the business of creating a community. And I would say as a result of that community, it becomes a village. And that village has been very, very important to the work we do here and also the work that we do around the world. Are there any questions? Appreciate your time. Don't forget, you've got the people that are watching online. Make sure they fill it out. That keeps you out of trouble. So we celebrate what your organization has done and what your business is doing, but you've got to make sure, and Jocelyn's going to ask you when you meet again, have all of your employees went through the videos to make sure they filled out the forms. That keeps you out of trouble. And that also keeps, Ms. Cynthia's going to make sure that we talk to Charles Johnson and all the people that we work with that are in this building. We still got to get T. I saw her yesterday. We'll make sure that she goes through that same training. We've got a drill team. We've just started a drill team. So we got girls that are here on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Now we got a drill team here on Mondays and Wednesdays. We got to, I know, we got to make sure that all of those people continue to do what they need to do to put us in a position to keep people safe. Jocelyn, anything? Congratulations on being chair. I think that's the only thing I didn't. There's a national publication it's called, what's the name of the book? There's a national publication called This Far by Faith that celebrates African American leaders who are reared and trained and provide service and leadership in the United Methodist Church. And last month, Jocelyn was featured in that magazine. Yeah, let's give her a round of applause for that too. She had 3 different pictures in 2 pages. I'm telling you, she was sharp. Anybody have any questions or concerns? Let's stand. Can we stand?
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. Go for it.
So this QR code is the assessment. If you've already done the assessment, you're done. But if you haven't done the assessment, and those who are watching us online are seeing that same QR code, it will take you to that. So please fill that out on your spare time. Open up your camera, click on that link that pops up, and fill out those questions so we can make sure that we work well together and we remember what we learned today. Thank you, Reverend Deb, and thank you, Pastor Peter, and Dr. Rover, and Montel, and yeah. Thank you.
I used to apologize for being this way, but I've been doing it for 31 years now, so I don't apologize anymore. How can I pray for you? Do we have any prayer requests?